This is Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast, a podcast about, you guessed it, nonprofit fundraising. This isn't the first podcast about it, but definitely not like any others you've listened to. This is a podcast for fundraisers, by fundraisers. No boring charts or the same stale best practices you've heard for years. No ideas that only work in theory here. No concepts from people who aren't in the same trenches as you are every single day. Each week, you'll get practical strategies and tips to craft messages that engage donors and raise more money. This isn't smoke and mirrors. Everything has been pressure tested in the real world. Plus, you can start using them as soon as the episode ends. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Thomas and Steve Thomas.
Hello. Welcome to Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast. This is episode 16. Fundraising with photos that actually raise funds. I'm your host, Ryan Thomas, Vice President at Oneicity.
And I'm Steve Thomas, CEO and one of the founding partners of Oneicity.
We started this podcast because we've actually had it for a long time. We just haven't had any equipment or
audience.
Anybody listening? We've had a lot of people not listening when we would be
walking
away from conversations, because when you're in this work, you know that it doesn't stop on the weekend or at night, and we would be discussing fundraising topics and strategies and ideas, and we're the only two people in that group often
it's
who
a small
care.
Group, yeah.
And we just realized, wait, we could record these,
And if someone walks away, we don't see them walk away. It's a little less hurtful.
I take it a lot less personal if you stop listening to the episode than if you just pick up your plate and go to a different table. And sadly, that's happened, but it's okay. It's fine. We're both at Oneicity. We do fundraising marketing for nonprofits, and that's what gets us up out of bed and keeps us going. And we've been in the game for well over a decade, and we have lots of people on our team who measure their experience in the decades. And it's a great team. It's a lot of fun. And if you've been paying,
and we do great work.
We do awesome work.
Yeah,
we do awesome work, which is why we would talk about our work so much at barbecues and things, and people would get frustrated. But if you've been paying close attention, you noticed that we share a last name, which might make our title of the podcast make a little more sense. If not, just keep listening.
Keep
and
going.
You'll either
It doesn't
figure it
matter.
out.
It's all good, yeah.
Or you'll like it more. And after you figure it out, send us your reviews or questions or critiques. We are accepting critiques to podcast@oneicity.com. That's ONEICITY.com. And your 5-star reviews, your 4-star reviews, your 3.5-star reviews.
Oh, man.
All of those, send those to your podcast deliverer of choice, whether that be Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Stitcher. Pick your app. If it does a podcast, give us a review there. That'd be helpful. So first, we like to start with something that we have seen in the wild, because we like to always focus on something that is actionable, that you can deal with and start doing and dealing with today. And so this is something we've seen and we're going to discuss. And sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it's something that's cringeworthy. And I'm going to go first, because the thing I saw just blew me away is in an email. And in email, I've seen, now this is going to get controversial, either Jiff or Gif. And we're not going to get into, we may have to have a special episode for
which is it?
Which it is, or which we say. But
Where do you land?
I say Jiff.
Yeah.
I saw it on Jeopardy. The guy in a clue, he says it rhymes with Jiff, and I saw that early, and that stuck with me. And I can't, I'm intransient, so I'm not good at changing. But anyway, most of us have probably seen GIFs or GIFs, moving images without sound,
And
in
really not
emails.
video.
Nope.
It's different. It's a code thing, right?
Yeah, they're sort of like video. It's most analogous to the flip books that a lot of us did as kids.
That's great.
In a loop.
Yeah.
And so it's a full color video, but it's 5 seconds usually in a loop. And most of us have probably seen those in email banners, and they get your attention. And when used well, it can be really cool. When used not well, it can be kind of lame. But I saw one as a call to action button.
Oh, interesting.
The call to action button at the bottom of the email was sort of a gold color.
Okay.
And the GIF or Jiff part was sort of that shine reflection that people draw.
So it sort of sparkled.
And it went across
Oh,
the
nice.
button, making it really look like a shiny gold button for you to click on. And
Your golden ticket.
yeah, but that didn't make the email subject or topic any more interesting. But it really got my attention, and I actually clicked, and I wasn't going to. And that's a place I hadn't thought about trying to put in a GIF or GIF.
Yeah, that's great. And that is. So have you emailed the team and said, "Hey, let's look for GIF opportunities"?
In the call to action button, I did last week.
I wondered.
We've done it in the email or in the banner,
Right.
But had never even looked into.
So just a little sparkle, you know.
And not everybody, your design motif may not be gold shiny buttons, but maybe a flashing button if it's a last chance if you're running out of a match, or maybe you just want to have a border around your button of a different color and have that border run around.
Rotate, yeah. And that's not going to use up a lot of. It's not space, but memory.
No, it won't add time
yeah.
to load.
Yeah.
And because that's the other consideration. You don't want to get too fancy.
Yeah.
And the goal there is that's just another way to get attention.
Yeah.
And if you can get attention in your email, that's 90% of the battle.
Okay, very cool. All right, so I really wish you'd let me go first, because now this is going to be.
Yours doesn't have a gold button.
I don't
does
have
it?
a gold button. It's sort of dumb, but it also sort of fits. So stay with me on this.
All right.
So I got a piece of direct mail, and I'm going to hold off. And if this is your first listen, I'm not always the guy with direct mail. So it's not.
No, that's usually me.
Yeah, you often have that. So anyway, but you don't usually bring your homework, and so because often you're telling about when they got thrown away or the dog ate or something like that you don't bring. I actually have one.
Rarely bring my homework.
I've been thinking about contrast, and not the contrast from photography or imagery where it's the difference between light and dark, which is a contrast and it's helpful, but just the drawing of contrast. And so one of the things that I got a piece of direct mail this week, and one of the things that got my attention for the podcast, I was paying attention to this because it's actually from a client. Everything is typeset, right? And everything is appropriate colors and it works well. And then we use a little arrow squiggle that's clearly a handwriting arrow squiggle. In fact, it even looks a little pencilish or like a felt tip or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's not smooth.
Yep.
And it occurred to me that many times people are thinking so much about, what they imagine great design to be or what they imagine, the look should be, that it becomes homogeneous. It blends in. And I was really struck by how much my eye, even knowing this was a client, even knowing I had reviewed this work, it caught my eye, and I looked where the arrow pointed because it was the only thing in my view, and I'm not wanting to show client work here, but
Even though it is awesome, we do great work.
Well, yeah, but we're trying not to advertise. It was the only thing pointing. It was the only thing not clearly smooth typeset design.
Everything else, like you said, is typeset. It's letters.
Yeah.
And this had a squiggle has movement. And
So it's like an analog
version.
GIF.
Yeah, and if you had 4 of those envelopes, you could flip them really fast and it could move.
Okay, next
Print costs might go up a
I'm
little
coming in with technology because I just made me feel old.
But I think That is an analog version of that, because the goal of that squiggle, and you listening probably have done a version of that, or that exactly, is to get not just attention but direct the eye somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And doing that with a GIF, with a Jiff, or a flashing button, sirens, a squiggle, handwriting in the margin.
Sirens are harder, just going to say.
That could be hard to do in print.
Yeah. Anyway, so contrast is a lot more than just what you see in a photo or an image. Contrast is, one of the things you and I are drawing is contrast between us. One of the things that we want to do is contrast between our company and the other guys who may or may not do great work, but just draw contrast. And that is a powerful marketing, promotion, attention, influence tool.
Mm-hmm.
Contrast.
So next is something you should be doing if you're not already. And this is one of my favorite segments, because it is, like I said before, we're focused on actionable. If all the things we talk about are esoteric and in theory, things we've read about, but things we don't actually do. Yeah, highfalutin strategies. That's not helpful to you.
And usually don't make any difference.
Yeah, they don't really help anyway. And so we always come with at least one thing that if you are doing this, treat this as a 5-minute pat on the back for the effort it takes or took to do that.
Absolutely.
And if you're not doing it, as soon as the episode's over, because go ahead and finish listening.
Please, because the analytics are watching.
It's a big deal. The algorithm and the Google's watching. Just put that in place. And these aren't things that are too difficult. These aren't months in advance. So we're not going to sell this. This isn't brought to you by Razor's Edge or other database companies that you should install.
We got to look for sponsorship.
But it could be. Let's just be clear. It's not, only because I checked podcast@oneicity.com before we went live, and there wasn't an email from anybody saying we ought to do that.
Here's your $100,000 for your first year. I'd get you
or less than that. Send us your best offer, and we'll take it from there. Yeah.
Podcast@oneicity.com. I'll go ahead.
Make that clear.
Well, you don't want to get
I don't want to get the other guy. I don't want the other guys to get our possible check. So the thing I'm going to say you should be doing, if you're not already, a few episodes ago, I talked about giving to other organizations.
Yeah.
And it's a great strategy. You learn a lot from them, how they do things. I should have said it then, but I'm glad I didn't, because now I get to use it for this episode. You should give to yourself and subscribe to yourself, because when you're seeing things in review or even as part of a seed list, it looks different.
So first, to say what a seed list is, because not everybody knows that.
That's a good call. Seed list is essentially you are on your organization's either direct mail or email mailing list, and you get the emails as just part of being slotted in. In direct mail, sometimes that can come at a different time.
Yeah.
And so the reason I prefer to give a gift and organically hop on, and then I also like to use a separate email for my work email.
Yeah, so you hide, don't you?
Yeah, I really like to pretend to be a donor so I can be treated just that way and see how a donor experienced it, because there have been times where I've gotten an email and I loved the email. The subject line was on point. Pre-header was engaging. The email was great. But when I got it, for whatever reason, I thought, I wonder if this was the best time to have received the email. And so you see that, and then you look at it differently when it's your inbox and when you're actually going through the email. Same with mail. When it comes to your mailbox, did it actually stand out in your stack of mail?
Mm-hmm.
Do you validate and thank your donors?
Yeah. Did you get a receipt that you noticed?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or is the team following the process? Because you may have heard us talk about you need to validate and you need to thank, you need to do it in kind of this way. And you may have said, hey, are we doing that? Yep. We're doing that. Here's the plan. Here's how we do it.
Following those business rules.
But if in practice, it's the difference between reality and the lab. In the lab, you probably got an awesome process, but if it's not pressure tested, if it's not working in the real world like you want it to be, you need to know. So give your organization $25, hop on the lists, and make sure
use your
and
offshore
spot
bank
check.
account so they can't spot you.
Yeah, the same account you send us sponsorship deals. Use that to give to your organization as well. So what do you have?
So if you take donations online, you are paying a credit card fee.
Yep.
Okay, because you just
That's same as is in any other small business. So you may have gone to a really small restaurant or donut shop and they have a credit card minimum that you have to spend.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
The reason for that is they're paying 3.5%, 4.5% on your card swipe or insert or Apple Pay just to take your money. And so if you're making them pay 4.5% off of 90 cents, they didn't quite lose money, but it ate into their little profit.
A lot of
margin.
times they'll have a minimum.
Oh yeah, a minimum with the
So-
processor.
So it's like, it's a $2 cup of coffee and a $3 minimum fee. So lovely, I lost $1
Yeah,
on you.
thanks
You're
a lot.
great, thank you. So what you should do is consider changing the way your online giving platform, and I'm rapidly going to get out of the technical part so you can help me with this. It is the give your donor the option, and I need you to hear very clearly how I want you to frame this, the option to then, after they've decided, so I'm going to give $100. You've got to call it a 3% for easy rounding. So you're going to pay $3 on that $100.
The organization,
which
means I'm actually going to get $97.
Exactly. And I've got a story for another time about an organization that in that situation actually receipted us at $97, which is such a bad thing. But I'm not going to go there this time. We'll save that little rant for later. But what you can do is give your donor the option to pay the credit card fee after they've made the decision to give.
You want more money?
I do.
You want to ask them for more money
And what you'll
again a
find
second time?
Is in that moment when I'm giving $100, then you say to them in the drop down or the pop up or however you do it technically, it's most of the credit card. Most of the giving platform people have an option for you to do this, and if not, you need to talk to Ryan to figure that out. But it is would you like to then pay the 3% of the credit card fee for this donation?
Yeah.
It is amazing how many people will say, oh, well, yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
No.
But I want to do that. And so you're talking about with no extra work and no extra fundraising, adding, call it 3% to call it
Your bottom line.
My guess is you're going to have half the people who give online agree to that.
It's about what we've seen when we've moved to that, and what we haven't seen, because we also are big on your mileage may vary. So it may your percentage of converting that extra gift may vary, may not be 50%. But what we haven't seen is organizations getting complaints
Or abandonment at that point in the process.
Yeah, the overall conversion rate has stayed the same, or statistically the same, but nobody's getting calls, nobody's getting bugged.
Yeah. So it's not like you can go in and ask people to pay for the return envelope stamp, but it is the same idea as many times in direct mail. Either we will not have a paid postage on a return envelope, or we'll say, hey, if you put a stamp over this, it saves us the price of the postage. It's the same effect. Donors, if they love you, they don't want to cost anything extra. And after they've made that decision, it's not a bad thing to ask them to do just a little bit to make that happen. It's a piece of cake.
And on most platforms, you can customize how you word it, because that's where it's most powerful, is when you can put your wording around that. But even when it's a system where it's just, hey, would you like to cover the 3.5% processing fee? That still works. But if you've got the option to say, hey, you can help us save even more kids off the street by covering this cost. Yeah, sloths. That's even better. That's the better way to go. But regardless, see about giving your donors the opportunity. That's a good idea. That's a really good one.
You say that like you're surprised, but anyway.
No, I'm not surprised. I'm trying to give you credit where credit's due. And
I need it.
Naysay.
I need it.
So, photography. So we talk a lot about words. You and I are slightly wordy. Yes, that is not a contrast. We talk a lot about words and things that are effective, but talking about photography, I'm big on getting table stakes out of the way. You got to have words if you're going to fundraise.
Yep.
You got to have an image. Like an image is just, you ought to have one, not just logo, but an image of a person or a thing you're doing to help, some sort of encapsulating, showing what's going on in your organization. But what kind of photography should we use? It ought to be, it's actually, this is going to be a short episode because it really is just as easy as just choosing any photo you've got in your Dropbox or iCloud photo at your organization. Just toss it on the fundraising, you're done.
All right. That was a good episode.
That's great.
Finally
Well,
got one
we'll
under
see
an hour.
We'll see you next week. Right? I mean, it can't be that hard.
Yeah. So let's just say the reason photography is so important is it creates the sense of reality. It lets me go somewhere I'm not physically present. I mean, when you back out a little bit, that's the reason for photography in fundraising. Is I can't take you to China. I can't take you to the streets of LA. I can't.
Last year, you couldn't have taken me down to your organization.
That's
COVID.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So you photography allows you to go there, and that's why you take vacation pictures and take pictures of kids, and because you want to remember
the slide reel.
Yeah. So anyway. Photography and fundraising is as much about the emotion as the words. Here's the tricky part: is the photography can be so much more powerful than the words that will freak us all out. And I've got an example. You ready?
Yeah.
So I'm holding up a photo on the video. We'll show it. This is a famous photo of, and you will have seen this photo if you're over 20. I'll just say that. You probably don't know this photo, but it's an amazing photo. It is a photo of a child in the Sudan, a toddler. And the toddler is clearly emaciated and is face down, but probably about 12 feet behind the toddler is a vulture. And the vulture is watching the child. This photo was taken by a guy named Kevin Carter, who is a South African, who in 1993 was covering the Sudan and all of Africa, the famine. He won a Pulitzer Prize with it. Here's what you need to understand is this photo in the fundraising world, because it was broadcast, it was published, it was on Time's Top 100 Photos, won the Pulitzer, as I said. People began to give to the famine because this was the sense of reality. This
showed them what people were talking about.
There. So this is like, if you recall, the Afghan girl from 1984, I won't pronounce her name well, but the blue-eyed girl that was on the cover of the National Geographic.
Oh yeah, even I've seen that.
And then after the Syrian refugee crisis, the photo of the little boy who drowned in the evacuation, that picture. Those are just three of many iconic images that created two things. One, it created a desire for people to help. It made it real. It made it a situation where I connected emotionally beyond just hearing about the thing. The second thing is is it created a bit of a, maybe not a bit, it created some firestorm around the imagery. Carter.
Firestorm sort of
Yeah, in a bad
controversy.
So Carter was criticized because people said, once you think about it, this is sort of like I follow some Instagram influencers because I always have to think, who's taking that picture? How did that happen? How did because it's that way. Well, people said about Carter, why are you taking a picture? Why are you not saving that little boy?
Why are you not helping?
Why are you not helping? And the reason he didn't is he had been told by aid workers, and it was the rule is you don't interfere, because not only do they have diseases, the people you're wanting to help, they are very weak and vulnerable, and you may give them a disease.
Yeah.
He talked about, after taking this photo, how sad, and it was crushing. He eventually committed suicide because of what he had seen in covering the drought, because this famine had been so great, and he actually visually saw the devastation firsthand. And you think about it, he heard the cries, he was there, he was capturing it so the world could go there. Most of us haven't been to the Sudan. No. And so he was doing that job and working under the rules of the aid workers of, you don't interfere, you don't touch, let us take care of that. But he was crushed by the criticism, commits suicide. So a couple of things out of that. The power of photography is this way. I mean, the power was so great, the impact in the world was so great, he eventually commits suicide. What a sadness. But probably tens of millions of dollars raised to help in the famine because of his image.
Yeah.
So what I say is, any image you think about using for your fundraising, there's someone who will think it's a bad idea to show that image. It's just it
happens.
It's gonna be a thing. In our work, where we work a lot with people who are helping people who are experiencing homelessness or experiencing poverty or in addictions, there's a line that it always raises my hackles, is people talk about poverty porn. Yeah, which is the idea of using someone's image in a pornographic way, not sexually, but from a voyeuristic, watching something from the outside kind of thing. And I totally understand that. But also, as somebody who, like you, have spent time taking photos and getting images to take the donor into a situation they could never know otherwise. And so I wanted to start with, for one thing, we were cleaning out some office photos, and Chris had this image on a bulletin board, and we ran across it, and I went, oh, we got to talk about
images. Use that.
Yeah. So first to say, people will always have a critique, or if you find a powerful image, there'll be someone who says, you shouldn't do that. We can't dictate that, right?
And if no one does criticize your art or your imagery, you didn't choose something that was good.
It was strong enough.
Because the goal of all fundraising and everything that goes into your fundraising, because if your goal is to bake a cake, you want a cake that looks and tastes good. That's your goal. Which means you want eggs that are not spoiled. You want proper ingredients, because their job is to support the end goal of a cake that people enjoy eating.
Yeah. And
imagery that supports that might not be pleasing to everybody, but I think an important distinction that you were making is, does it help a donor understand a situation that they may not understand?
Yeah. And I think one of the things that to say, as we kind of zoom out, stay with imagery metaphors,
nice.
is to say, your words have impact, but the right image has greater impact, and you cannot quickly just say, well, we won't use powerful images. Now, that is a organizational choice that says we have certainly have worked with organizations who, rather than wrestle with individual images, they just didn't want to deal with powerful imagery, and their fundraising results certainly showed
they weren't powerful.
Exactly, because it didn't stick in anybody's mind, and so
Does it make and the reason they made that decision, if it's the ones I'm thinking of, is it helped them sleep better at night in a way, versus
they just didn't want to deal with the hard stuff.
Yep. And if you're doing this work, spoiler alert, fundraising isn't easy. I mean, I wish it
unlike
was.
finding sponsors for the podcast.
Yeah, that's
but
super
that's a piece of
easy.
cake.
We've been doing that.
Yeah,
but
send money too.
So in addition to being sensitive to voyeuristic, exploitive types of photos versus transportation kind of photos, bringing a donor into wherever you serve people or serve sloths or wherever, the other big decision you're going to have, and a lot of probably pushback, is do you show a need photo?
Okay, that's a great
before or an after photo.
Yeah. So, and I have no idea where this terminology came from us in our group or somewhere else, but
We made it. I don't even know what you're going to say, but I'll just say we came up with it.
we came at
Copyright, trademark,
so
hashtag.
before and afters, right? And so need versus success or something like that.
Yeah.
And so again, this is a contrast thing.
Yeah, no, I assumed that was like a really long forward.
I
tease.
didn't follow tease that. It just occurred to me. So yeah, if you, it's much like in our storytelling with the words, is if we can't say where you were, nobody's impressed that now you have a bank account or a sloth's able to sleep in in a tree. Do they sleep in trees? I'm going to learn more about sloths.
No, they're on limbs. We need to have somebody talk to us about sloths.
Okay,
but if you're eating a meal,
yeah,
that's not interesting. I don't want to watch somebody eat.
Yeah.
But if I know you went days without eating or digging through a trash can before getting that plate of food that I'm watching you eat. Exactly.
Or if I can see the picture of we're doing for some clients right now, some of our in the wild is work with kids who because of their home situation are not able to have all the school supplies going back to school. And so if I can imagine what a kid looks like who doesn't have school supplies and the things they need to go back to school to make it, if I can't visualize that, I just have the story and I may or may not imagine it. But if I can see a kid happy about getting a backpack, it's like, okay, here
done.
we go. Yeah,
we got that.
I want to be in on some of that.
How many sets of school supplies or backpacks can I give?
Yeah. So it is the contrast again of being able to show that. That is a situation that is directed by the strategy of whatever the impact is, whether it's email, website, direct mail, whatever it is. But that's one of the choices you're making in a strategic place of can we show? And there are some things you cannot show. I mean, let's just be clear.
Both in the sense of legally or procedurally, and then also that you just can't put in a photo.
And I'm I'm a fairly intense fundraiser on behalf of clients, and I believe in telling the story in as powerful with as much pop as we can manage. There are things that even I'm not. I would not have probably run this Famine photo because it's just gut wrenching. But it is it is powerful, and that's a choice that the organization and whoever the advisor or the agency is, they make. But it comes down to the core values of the client. But you have to be able to show and tell the before, so that you can show and tell the after. Because a smiling, happy person is a wonderful thing for often for the organization. They're focused on that because they intuitively and experience-wise, they know the before.
Yep.
The donor doesn't.
Nope. And that's something that is so hard when you are in it to remember, is the donor isn't doing everything you're doing day to day. They're not with you hour by hour helping these people. And so like you said, they don't know the before. You intuitively know, and oftentimes you're going to know literally that person's before, but guaranteed you know the general before of people who come to you.
Yeah.
And you don't want to waste time on that. And it's uncomfortable.
And it doesn't have to be horrible, terrible photography, that in terms of the how emotional it is. It can be as simple as someone who has a look on their face that is full of struggle. Yep. And then you frame it with your headline and your words, so that the viewer or the donor, I know what that facial expression is about because you've framed it
you've guided that person.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, pro tip, our clients, I have one client who tells people they're taking photos of, they say, okay, prepare to smile. And that's the resting face.
Yeah. Relax.
Now smile.
Yeah.
Now they take a picture. They take a picture of the smile and they say, okay, now relax. And then they take another photo once the smile has gone away. That's closer to a neutral photo.
Yeah.
Because it can be hard to tell someone, don't look happy.
Yeah. Look sad. And then you get all us bad actors.
It's like it's like Olin Mills telling you to tilt your head, but look this way.
Wait.
Do the chest. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. So I think that is just don't, out of hand, or in my opinion, a misguided sense of good values, just say we're not going to use any of those kind of photos.
You want to be true to you, but you also need to raise money. And
okay, so I'm just going to say, in addition to the raising money thing, which obviously that's something that is our core value and usually the mandate we have from clients, it's not fair to a donor, and it's not fair to whoever writes your words to make it all be about just me telling you. I mean, one of the reasons we're doing video is not because we look all that. Although you're not bad looking.
Spoiler alert, we don't.
Yeah.
We actually have faces for podcasts.
Yeah. But it is the reality. It is another way of making the need concrete. And if you just rely on your words, and if you just rely on, happy faces, you are doing the donor a disservice. They don't know the opportunity they have to change a life, or to change a situation, or to make a community or a city or a country better, and blah, blah, blah.
No. So you probably remember when adding a photo to a letter was new technology.
I am not that old. I'm just going to say,
right?
No, it was no.
You were part of the A/B test.
From the beginning, photos.
Somebody said, "We got this guy Edison. I think we ought to add.
It's going to take hours to have to carve
letter.
into the stone tablet,
But at some point, it is interesting to think. At some point, that was new.
Yeah,
there's nothing else to say about that. When I was thinking about this episode, I just remember thinking, at some point, photos were added because they always had words.
Yeah, I don't remember that part either.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot you don't remember. Another
so,
thing.
All right, so let's go back to that and just say one of the things that has been technologically advanced is the way you can control photos in print. because one of the things that you and I have worked on is how you can use the print technology to not look fancy schmancy, but yet powerful and have strong pop. There's so many cool things with a powerful image that you can do that take it out of is it color or black and white? Is it only those two options? Well, spoiler alert, as you would say, boy, there are all sorts of fun options that sort of fit in the middle between color and black and white. I still am drawn because Ansel Adams and some of the black and white guys really, Robert Franks, some of those guys, the power of black and white is without a doubt, again, contrast. It just draws you in because of some of the imagery that goes on there. But you don't have to just do black and white color. There's the range of things.
Unintended gray area.
Gray area, but it's in color, not in gray.
Oh, but gray is a color. Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
No, we're not getting into we're not getting into that.
Skip that.
After the need, success, the voyeuristic debates,
poverty porn.
Ugh. I am not getting caught on the. I'm not getting caught on the algorithm saying that.
You're not going to give me the E, are you? On this one? You got me on naughty problem a couple of weeks ago.
My gosh.
Anyway, with a K.
Yeah. So another photo decision is that you're going to have to decide, do you use images that play into stereotypes about your the
cause.
problem your cause?
Yeah.
Or do you show truly what's happening?
Because that's such a great question.
Taking one of our a lot of the people we help, you like you said, are rescue missions, people helping people experiencing poverty and homelessness, and ask someone in the supermarket, pick from this lineup who is a homeless person who's experiencing homelessness or poverty versus who really is coming in your doors as an organization with those struggles. A person in the supermarket, 9.5 times out of 10 is going to choose an old white guy with scraggly hair. Scraggly long hair up top and a beard,
and not usually a full beard.
No,
kind of that whole
wispy. It's kind of coming in, and those people are in those situations and are being helped, but the vast majority don't look like him.
Yeah,
and there is a debate of, well, we need to educate our donors on the cause. They love us. They love helping this. They need to know. Yes. However, when you don't match what they think, that makes them start thinking.
And anytime you're educating, you're not fundraising.
Because don't you love to be told what you don't know?
Absolutely not. Don't you love to be educated when you didn't ask to be educated, right?
And then at the end of it, the teacher says, well, I would like some money for telling you how dumb you were about this issue you thought you
Pass, right?
And that's, again, like everything else where we've said, your mileage may vary. This is your decision, not ours. You have to decide the balance between educating, helping a donor understand really what's happening and what they think. And the reason you want them to be thinking, well, actually, you don't want them to be thinking, because if they're thinking, they're not feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
And you want them to feel.
Good job.
Yeah. Because the heart is what is going to make, if the heart wants to give a gift, there's nothing your brain can do about it. As a husband, I can tell you, my wife can tell me all sorts of reasons why we don't need that thing. But man,
you got an example on that?
Let's just say I'm really glad that I've got a TV outside out on my patio. Did we need one? No, sure didn't.
Where there might have been some logical reasons why that wasn't a good idea.
There are lots of reasons why
TV outside, I still can't get my head around.
Yeah. But Did I want one? Sure did. And I just nodded during all of those logical arguments and said, yeah, no, I found a deal.
Yeah, it's all good. It's on the way.
But that heart, your brain can be telling you, hey, we got to check these guys out on Charity Navigator. Who are all of these reasons maybe not to give, but if your heart wants to give, spoiler alert, you're ending up filling out that response device or clicking and giving that shiny flashing button. And you do want them to know what's going on at your organization, but more than anything, you want them to connect with your cause. And we could do a whole episode on how to strike that balance, but I just want to say that that's a consideration you're going to have to make, and it's not as simple as one or the other.
Yeah, and one of the things I would say is you and I both have wrestled with. I was going to say wrestled with clients, but I guess we have, in a good way. One of the things we're blessed with is clients who both respect us and allow for that wrestling of how to do these things. You can break the stereotype with imagery and with story and that kind of thing. But if you do it too much, then that becomes sort of whiplash to a donor. They don't, hey, what is this about? I don't even understand who are these guys helping. And so you absolutely do not want to be trying to educate without permission, but you can use your imagery to startle in a way that then gets the donor to go, well, how's that work? Mm-hmm. What's that about?
Or you can use your squiggle. Calling back 3 segments. And
nice.
In one case, we've used a stereotypical image, and it wasn't a stock image. The client said, this is the one guy who looks like this that we serve, but yes, this is our image. We used that and drew a squiggle or an arrow to him and said, you didn't help him. And then,
what?
And that gets the donor's attention, and then they're very interested in finding out that the reason you didn't help him isn't because you didn't want to, isn't because you're not a partner of ours. It's because people who look like him don't really come to us.
Yeah, that's not who we're helping anymore.
Here's who you really helped. And then it was, pictures of moms and kids and other people.
Yeah, what is that about?
And they got a lot of favorable responses. But then, they were like, okay, well, we kind of need to do that again. And they wanted to turn that into a strategy. You can't do that too often, but there are ways, like you said, to startle, engage emotion.
Contrast. The word for the day.
Now that we need to go into Final Cut Pro and just remove all the times I gave it a different title. It just needs to be the contrast episode.
The contrast episode. So I think great comments on that. One of the things I would say is, like many things, it's how does the strategy fit where you're headed? And if that is in place, then as good images and bad images come up, or as somebody says, well, we can't use that, or somebody says, we got to use this, you've already decided a little bit about how this is going to work and what you're going to do. So let's do some basics so that everybody's clear, and these are kind of the dotting of I's and crossing of T's. You never use someone's image without their permission. You certainly never use minors' images without their permission. There are rules that are in place that let you be free in a public place to take images and use them. But on the other hand, do you really want to use images of people who don't want you to use them? I mean, that's just bad.
You can, but should you? Do you want
to? So a couple of options there. You and I both have, and you just came back from a trip to a client to take pictures. Well, it's always
boy, are my arms tired.
That's such a no. It is all about the conversation with the person whose image you're taking. Do they understand what you're about? Do they understand you're not trying to exploit them or use them in a way? You're trying to connect people with the organization and with you, the person I'm taking the picture of, to change life. That becomes something that is, you can build it into an organization so that it's part of the ethos. We tell people how big a difference you have that has been made in your life, how far you have come if it's a person. I was thinking, I didn't think I'd be able to talk about it, but I'm gonna. Sally Field. If you think about Sally Field, you don't think about the old, what was it? All in the Family was what she was in, but it was on. She did these series of infomercials on one of the animal rescue or dog rescue. I can't remember which one it was, but they were just images of the animals at play, and they were probably 2 or 3 notches too intense for most people, so that the horror show is what you remember, not the happy animal. So that is in other words, another place to look at balance. You can show an image, maybe this image of the child and the vulture is in that category, where it's so intense that it sort of wipes out the person's ability to act. And so there is a balance there. This is not about showing a horror show. This is about revealing a difference that was made. What does it look like to come out of to be in a sad situation? Here's the story I tell, and now I have a smile. If you're somebody who does newsletters, we've talked about newsletters. Newsletters are a place where you can easily, because of both real estate and the genre, you can show that before and after. You can show the happy faces. Happy faces are hard to raise money on because you don't show what happened before.
Yep.
So,
for younger listeners or viewers, the Sally Field reference is probably that Alanis Morissette song that's been ruined because of the ASPCA commercials.
there you go. Okay, that was good.
Yeah, In the Arms of an Angel or something like that.
Oh,
and it's the dogs in the crate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I used to kind of like that song, but
Not anymore.
I now can't listen to that song anymore.
So that's a great. We've talked 2 or 3 times in this podcast about feel and the power of expertise and having both done and seen lots of fundraising and marketing. That becomes a feel thing, so that you actually may create a little bit of buzz and attention with that really powerful poppy kind of thing with
her song.
Yeah. Well, probably the image is more than the song.
No, yeah.
Yeah. So you can do that, but the long, you always talk about long tail, the long results, the ROI, the relationship built, you've blown them away. It's
and
like
not in a good way.
It's like concentration camp photos. It's like, don't want to look at that. Mm-hmm. You're not trying for that. It is you must have a deft hand. You must have some experience in photography. One of the things that we'll talk about at some point is Paul Ekman, the guy who is famous for being the lie detector a person who teaches people how to spot people who are lying, and it's just great. But one of the things that's true in that is that there are some facial expressions that are instant, automatic. You have no doubt what is happening there. It works across cultures and language and people. Those are not in doubt. It's when you go too far, when you are trying for you're take it up to 11, you push too hard. So this is not about finding the most gut-wrenching image. This is not about finding something. Oh, donors will really be just blown away.
We're gonna make them cry.
Yeah, that's not the
ruin
goal.
Their day.
And in fact, it's the opposite of that. It is about touching their heart, and that requires that middle range, the not bland, but
not too far.
Not a baby dying in front of a vulture. Interesting. So on this, I forgot to say this on this photo, is that this child eventually they tracked him, and he lived through this moment and lived into at least his teens in the Sudan.
Wow.
But interestingly enough, the photographer didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So a hard thing. So I don't know. What do you want to do now?
Way to end this segment.
I'm sorry. It's like,
wow.
Well, you could so again, let's just say, whatever you're doing, you can go too far in imagery, period, no question. But you can also be so afraid of going too far that you do nothing. And so there's not even a ripple in the pond because you were afraid of creating too big a ripple. So it's that middle ground. Ease into it. Just begin. Just wrestle with it. I thought
you won't hit it first.
Yeah. But you get there. And I thought your description of the things to if you're doing people, it's harder with dogs or sloths to say don't smile or smile. But you with people, you can do some of those games and allow people to do that. And it's amazing how if someone's just not smiling and you put the context of a hard story around it, people form in their mind what that's about, and it connects that.
The reason they're not crying is because of the story I just read, not because they were told, give your smiling muscles a rest.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, good. I like that.
Yeah. All right. Our last segment, and we'll do really quick because we've ironically spent a lot of words on a topic that should have no words. Photography.
Ooh.
Yeah, that wasn't my best, but I didn't actually plan that out, so it's not so bad.
I can tell.
It's because I did it on the fly. Anyway, now we're on our radar. These were things that you and I passed around, and today you ought to look at this, and we're passing and bringing you into our email chain, but there are no reply alls here. So my on the radar is an article I read a while back during the pandemic that a magazine in San Francisco, SF Gate, did with an FBI hostage negotiator talking about, and that it was about pandemic things that I don't want to get into, but the FBI hostage negotiator had tips for relating to people, because the more you think about it, the more I've thought about it, there are some commonalities between hostage negotiation and fundraising. And if we ever start recording pre-show bumpers before the theme,
that would be a good one.
That goes in there. The things he pointed out to get someone to take a desired action that they may not want to take at the moment is to let them know that they're being heard, connect with them. Mm-hmm. You want to actively listen to them. You want to ask why they feel that way, why they think that, because you're wanting to dig deeper, not in a way to attack their thoughts, but dig deeper in and connect with them. It's a way to say, oh, well, tell me more about that. Why? How'd you learn that? Connect with them. It's all about deepening the connection. Mm-hmm. You got to be truthful.
Okay.
Even if you're promising pizza helicopters to Mexico, I mean, you got to be truthful.
$1 million bucks.
Yep. You got to tell your position, what you are and aren't going to do, and be accurate, because people know when they're being placated, when this is all fake, and that also comes through to a donor. If you aren't authentic, a donor is eventually going to figure that out.
Yeah.
So instead of helping or fighting people robbing banks, get them to donate to your cause.
Okay. I have a great idea for your book on fundraising hostage.
Oh, great.
I think it'd be awesome.
We'll get some reviews, that's for sure.
Okay, mine is so different than that. I think we've talked about, if not, I in my mind, I think we've talked about cognitive bias, the things in our heads, the way we operate, that lead us to make bad decisions, and it's part of the wiring that we have. My favorite of the cognitive biases is something called confirmation bias, which basically says I'm actually going to seek out information that confirms my pre-existing beliefs. It's one of the reasons that influence is so hard and persuasion is practically impossible in big matters, because I've already decided what I'm going to listen to.
Yep.
Well, I read an article, and I'll just say Google. We'll try to put it in the show notes. So the thing to look at is reticular, reticular, reticular activating systems. There's a group of neurons in your brain that is wired, literally wired in neuron world, to select information that you agree with. So not only do you have the bias, and more importantly, your donors have the bias to listen to and filter out things they disagree with. They have neurons, they have the actual plumbing in their brain. I guess that's wiring rather than plumbing. The wiring in their brain to help them only connect with things they already agree with, which I'll call back to your earlier comment about stereotypes. One of the reasons that works is because I've already sort of thought that is true. And so then you tell me something that I agree with. Oh, I'm going to listen to that. Then you have the opportunity, if you need to, for whatever reason, to say, but that's not, the stereotype is not true. You get heard that way. So Reticular Activating System, give that a Google. We'll put it in the show notes. It is interesting because if it's wired in your brain that way, you sort of can't ignore it. It's a thing.
What's it called again?
Reticular Activating Systems. Part of...
That sounds like something that should come from Ronco.
It does.
And have an infomercial.
Well, and there's a whole thing about reticulating spines. There was a whole jokey meme about that way back in the aughts.
Reticular Activating System. That sounds like a fancy word for a crock pot.
No.
I mean, it's not, but it just...
It's an Instapot.
Okay, that was actually good.
Okay.
That was good.
And opposed to other things. All right.
As opposed to my other one.
That's what I got.
Well, that was good. Aside from my two bad jokes, that was good. And hopefully we helped with photography. And if you have any questions or you want us to weigh in and break a tie at your organization for is this too far or not far enough?
The not far enough is probably the place most people will be.
Yep. You're more likely to err on not far enough than err too far. Yeah. So get uncomfortable and you're probably closer to where you ought to be.
Take it up one notch.
But email podcast@Winicity along with your reviews or questions. Hey, here's what we do. Here's a photo we're thinking. Is that too far or not far enough? We'll give you our unbiased opinion, and we'll use our reticular activating system to figure out if we agree with that or not.
It's the thing.
I know.
I didn't make that up.
For whatever reason, that name just has me stuck.
So maybe if it were named the
RAS.
I
don't know. Yeah. I'm an acronym person.
Okay.
Anyway,
your RAS neurons.
The RAS neurons.
You're not going to go there, are you?
I can normally see that coming. You
didn't.
I can't wait to see how the captions are going to handle that one.
Yeah, it'll be great because it'll just be like RAS neurons right across the screen. That's not going to get us an E.
I'm having so much trouble holding it together.
Okay, come on, you're supposed.
I got
You're supposed to be the adult. Come on, man.
I can close.
Let's wrap it up. Close it.
Right.
Close it.
Aside from that, this was episode 16 of Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast. Send your
the RAS
episode. Send your reviews, your other bad sounding system names to podcast@winicity.com. Wherever you're listening to a podcast, give us 3.5, 4, 5-star reviews. And next week, we're probably going to talk about lots of other things, but we're definitely going to talk about why your next event should be held at an abandoned shopping mall.
Ooh, nice. There are a lot of those available.
There are. It's easy to find space. I'm Ryan Thomas.
And I'm Steve Thomas.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort. Tune back in next week for another fresh episode of Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast.